All right, whenever you're
Hello.
ready.
Okay. Aloha. My name is Shiana Lopez, and I'm the current SNAP program coordinator for the SNAP Outreach Program. We're gathered here today to talk about SNAP and how you folks can assist someone to apply for the benefits. Next. Okay, before we start the SNAP webinar, I would like to share just a little bit of information about our agency. So Helping Hands Hawaiʻi, we're a nonprofit organization located on Oahu. We do have a lot of programs that we offer to those in the community. If you are interested in learning more about our programs, you can check us out at our website, helpinghandshawaii.org. Through our SNAP outreach program, we are contracted by the Department of Human Service, and our goal is to assist clients by promoting the SNAP program, educating clients on our partner agencies about SNAP program requirements, student application process, and etc. Okay, in this webinar, we will cover the following. We'll talk about SNAP eligibility requirements, how to complete the SNAP application, how to help someone apply for and maintain their SNAP benefits, and I'll also be answering the questions to some frequently asked questions about SNAP. Next. To be eligible for SNAP, a person or the entire household must meet the following requirements. Everyone in the household must be a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or a qualified alien. U.S. national includes those who are from American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands. If you're a qualified alien, you have to have been a legal permanent resident for more than 5 years. If you have been a legal permanent resident for less than 5 years, you're not eligible until you fulfill that requirement. Also, the family must meet the income test for their household composition that they're wanting to apply for. Also, everyone in the household must be residing in the state in which they are applying for benefits and not receiving any other assistance from another state. Go to the next one. Okay. This is the monthly gross and monthly net income test that the household has to pass in order to be eligible for the SNAP benefits. I will actually send you another updated one, as I was just informed that the incomes have changed for the household size. But just to keep a note that for a household size of 1, that's the monthly gross income. If they don't pass the monthly gross income, then they won't be qualified for SNAP. Also, if they don't meet the net, they also won't be qualified for SNAP benefits. So again, in order to be eligible, they have to pass the gross income test and the monthly net. Gross income is income that is received before deductions, and monthly net income is a combination of income, expenses, and the SNAP deductions to determine their final net income. Next. Okay. How to help someone complete their SNAP application. There are multiple ways that you can help someone to complete their application. You can do so by scheduling an in-person interview, or you can do via phone or online, such as Skype or Zoom, to answer their questions and complete the application. You can also help someone to complete their SNAP application by gathering the required supporting documents. You can help them with also the submission of their documents, or even like printing it out, or even dropping it off for them. And lastly, you can help someone to complete their SNAP application by turning in the application for them, by doing drop-offs, or even via email or fax. Next. Okay. How do you help one person to obtain a SNAP application? You can help someone to obtain a SNAP application by mailing out their SNAP application, or you can also distribute it along with the hot food, with the hot meals or food boxes. You can also help someone to obtain a SNAP application by picking up an application at any of the DHS processing offices, or an application can be filled out and printed out at the link below. Okay, next one. Okay, now we're going to talk about the application and how to complete the application. So some important things to know. All questions must be answered for all household members who are required to apply together unless otherwise specified. For the application, it can still be accepted and processed if the client, fills out their full name, address, their phone number, and signatures on page 1 and page 11. However, I do suggest that you complete the application fully or as much as possible to avoid any delays in the process of applying for SNAP benefits. If the applicant does decide to do it this way, they would expect DHS to assist them with completing the remaining of the application during the interview process. Next. Okay, SNAP application. So the first page, on page 1 of the application, applicant will need to fill out in general demographic information. They will also have to indicate the type of assistance that they're applying for, whether it's money or SNAP or both, and whether or not they would also like to apply for the emergency assistance for benefits. If there is a spouse in the household, they also have to complete their name, their social security number, and their birth date. Same as for the primary applicant, they would also have to fill in their last, first name, middle initial, social security, birth date, their phone number, physical address, mailing address, and sign-in date. If their physical address is the same as the mailing address, they don't need to complete the mailing address line. However, if it is different, then they would have to complete that section. Next page.
Can I ask a really quick question?
Mm-hmm.
If folks are out, like you said, delivering hot meals or food boxes and helping their neighbors fill out the application, and let's say, for example, the kupuna didn't feel comfortable putting their social security number on the form that someone else is going to help turn in, could they leave that blank?
Yes, so they can leave it blank. It's not going to hinder their application, but they would have to provide it to DHS if they are asked by the staff.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay. Also on page 1, it would share with them about expecting an appointment notice and what can happen in the interview and about the appointment. So I'll just share some key notes to know about it. After submitting the application, an appointment notice will be given to the applicant of their interview day and time. So they may, receive a letter stating, of their interview day or time, or they might just get a random phone call, from DHS to complete their interview. Let's see. If an appointment is missed, an applicant must call the local office to reschedule, and if they can't, or if they also need to change their appointment, they would also need to contact the office to reschedule. If an appointment is not rescheduled by the 30th day of when the application was initially received, or their application will be denied, meaning that they would have to reapply again for the SNAP benefits if that is the case. Next slide. Okay, on the bottom of the page, that's where an applicant can apply for emergency assistance for food stamp benefits. Those who are interested in applying for the emergency assistance, there are requirements in order for them to possibly be eligible for it. In order to do so, the household must receive a gross income of $150 or less, have less than $100 in their checking or savings account, and their monthly rent or mortgage and utilities are more than the household's monthly income. If they are eligible for the emergency assistance, they could receive assistance within 7 calendar days, which is quicker than the normal 30-day processing time. If they are interested in applying for the emergency assistance, they do have to answer the questions that are listed on the application. They'll just indicate whether it's a yes or a no.
Is emergency assistance different from SNAP?
No, so it's the same. So the emergency assistance is just, so it's the same as SNAP, but they're requesting that they're in an emergency situation, so they would like the benefits quicker than the normal 30-day processing time.
Okay, so if you were just applying for SNAP without requesting it to be within the 30 days, you would be eligible if you had more than $100 in your bank account.
If it's less than 100, then you may be able to apply for the emergency assistance.
Okay. So
for
just
SNAP benefits.
Right. Would a person who meets the gross and net income monthly limits but has $200 in their bank account, could they still apply for SNAP?
Yeah. So with the income, as far as the amount that they have in their bank account, right now it doesn't really have an effect on their eligibility. So they could have, $1,000, and if they meet, the income limits, then they could still possibly be eligible for the assistance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on page 2 of the application, that's where there would indicate everyone that is applying for the SNAP benefits. So on line 1, that the primary person who is applying for the assistance, they will be the ones to receive the money or the SNAP benefits for the entire household, and their information would have to be provided on line number 1. If there is a spouse in the household, then the spouse's information will go on the next line. And then for all other household members, whether it's their children or their mom, their dad, etc., they will go on the following lines afterwards. And also, if anyone in the home is pregnant, they are able to list the child on the household and will just indicate that right now it is an unborn child. Next. Okay, for each person, they would have to indicate the following: their name, their gender, the relationship to the person of number 1 who is the primary applicant, their birth date, their social security number, their ethnic, their race, their marital status, indicating whether they're disabled or not, and their highest grade completed. The last 2 boxes where it says name of child's parents if not in the home, or was the child's mother married to the child's father at the time of the birth, they don't necessarily have to complete that question. And if they don't fill in that question, then they won't be penalized and everything for not filling out that section. So this will have to be done for each household member that is applying for the SNAP benefit. Next. Okay, so for each of that, there are codes that would have to be used to indicate what, gender or what relationship or their ethnic and their race are. So as you can see on the screen, it does show what those codes are, and it also shows on the application. So say, for example, if there is a spouse within the household, on the line number 2, where you fill out their information, you would just indicate SP as they are the spouse, and that is the relationship to the person number 1. Also, if there's a child in the household, then again, the line where they fill in the child's information, they would just note in CH as child to the relationship to the person number 1. Next. Okay, then the primary applicant will then have to identify the ethnic and the race for each members of the household. So if they're Hispanic, they'll just input HI. If they're not Hispanic, they will just use NH. And then also the race, this question is optional, so they don't have to, complete it if they don't want to, and it's not also going to hinder their application. But again, they'll use these codes, as you can see on the application, to identify what their race is, what race they are. Next. Okay, next section they'll have to answer is the marital status codes. So these are the codes that are indicated on the application. And again, they would just have to indicate what is the current marital status for each of the household members. So if they're married and they're living together, they would just indicate ML. If never married, they'll indicate NM. And then if divorced, they'll indicate DI, and so forth and so forth. Next. Okay, question 2 on page 2. So household members who do not want to help. So this question is for those who are a part of the benefit household but does not want the assistance. So say, for example, if you have a household size of 4, it's mom, dad, and 2 children. Dad doesn't want the assistance, but mom and the 2 children does. That's where you will indicate that dad doesn't want the SNAP assistance, and you would have to, provide their information, like their name, their gender, their birth date, their age, on the application. Do note though that even if dad does not want the help for SNAP, his information as far as his income and his expenses would still be included to determine the other household members' eligibility for SNAP benefits. Next. All right. Question number 3 is anyone temporarily out of the home. They would just have to, indicate whether anyone, is moving in, moving out, or it is expected to return to the household. If this question is not applied to them, they can just check off no and then move on to the next question. Next. Okay, page 3. On the top of the page, there's information about a financial applicant's representative, SNAP authorized representative, and an electronic benefit transfer authorized representative. So this section is asking, if they want to authorize, someone else besides themselves to, have access to their EBT card or help to represent them with applying for SNAP benefits. And in this case, you guys work with the kapunas. So say, if there's someone, that mobility is a challenge for them, and, say they have like a daughter or a son or a granddaughter, that does their grocery shopping for them, they can authorize, that individual to have access to their SNAP benefits, to use their card and do their grocery shopping for them. As well as with the SNAP authorized representative, this particular individual, again, can help them to apply for SNAP benefits, maintain their benefits, complete the interview for, their complete interview for them, as well to signing any of the papers and doing any of the recertifications as well. Next. Okay, page 3, again, we're just answering questions 4 to 7. So just indicating yes or no. If anyone in the household is a disabled U.S. veteran, a disabled spouse, or a child of a deceased U.S. veteran, indicating if anyone is disabled. If so, they would check off yes and indicate who. Number 6, they would have to indicate yes or no if anyone in the household is a fleeing felon, ever violated their parole, probation, or ever been convicted of a federal or state felony for possession, use, or distribution of illegal drugs. This question is asked because there are also eligibility requirements for those who have committed any of those. Depending on their situation, that can affect, someone from being eligible for their SNAP benefits. And then number 7 is just indicating yes or no if anyone in the household has been found guilty of misrepresenting residents to obtain assistance in 2 or more states. Meaning, they have assistance in one state and then they're trying to get that assistance again in another state in which that is not allowed for SNAP benefits. Next. Okay, question 8. This is where everyone would have to declare what is their citizenship. So what they'll do is they'll just indicate what their name is, and then checking off whether or not they're a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or non-U.S. citizen. If you are a non-U.S. citizen, they would have to complete the following: so their birthplace, the date of entry when they came into the United States, what is their immigration status, whether they are a LPR or a visa, effective date of that status, indicating what is their alien registration number, and whether or not if themselves or their spouse or parents have 40 quarters of work, whether or not they're a veteran or an active military, or spouse or dependent child of a veteran, or active military. Next. Okay, for question 9, if sponsor so this is only applies for those who are non-U.S. citizens and if they have a sponsor. So if they do have a sponsor, they would have to indicate, their name, address, and their phone number. One thing to note is that sometimes the sponsors, information may have to be included along with the applicant that is applying for assistance. But I would say in this case, working with your population group, I don't think you have to really worry about any of this kind of situation or filling out that question. Next. Okay, so page 4, very simple, just indicating what is the primary language spoken in the home. If it's English, they'll just check off English, or if it's another language, they will just indicate what that language is, and then indicating how well English is spoken in the home. So they'll just check off one of the following boxes, whether they don't speak or understand English, whether they have limited understanding, whether they speak well but does not read or write English, speaks well but very limited or is very adequate with reading and writing skills for English. If they do need an interpreter, they would indicate that on the application on question 10, and they would indicate the type of language. And just to let them know that they can be provided an interpreter if needed, and they don't have to pay anything for an interpreter, or they can also provide their own interpreter or have a family member or friend who can do so for them. All right, questions 11 to 15 also have to be completed. Question number 11, has anyone ever received a financial or SNAP assistance? So they would have to, these questions would apply to everyone that is on the applying benefit. So they would have, so if anyone in the household has ever been on the assistance, they would have to indicate yes, and also indicate the type of assistance, the last time they received it, and in what state they received. So that would be done for each member of the household if they have been on it before. If they have not, they can just indicate no, and then they can move on to question 12. Question 12 asks, has any household member been disqualified from the SNAP or financial assistance program? A lot of times, individuals are quite confused on what this question is asking. A lot of times, people think, this question is asking, have they ever been disqualified or denied benefits? In this case, that's not what it is. This question is asking, if they were ever disqualified or sanctioned from their SNAP benefits because they broke one of the program rules, or they wasn't following or wasn't being compliant with the program. Number 13 wouldn't apply I believe, to a lot of your target population, so we can just go ahead and skip that one. Number 14 and number 15. Number 14 will just indicate if anyone in the household is on strike. And then 15 is just listing if there's anyone in the home that's needed to care for a disabled person, if there is so. Next. Okay, question number 16. This is where the applicant would have to identify any of their assets that are owned. So they have financial accounts, liquid assets, and other assets. So if the household member has a checking account, savings account, a credit union account, or Christmas savings, they would indicate yes. And then for each of that, they would have to name the person on the account, name the financial institution and branch, their account number, and their amount. If they're not comfortable, with providing their account number or the amount that they currently have in their account, they are able to leave it blank, but just do know that DHS would ask for it, and they would also have to provide verification of the account and the amount in their account currently. Also, for the liquid assets, they have the following, which is cash on hand, tax refund, tax credit, stocks or bonds, money market, tax certificates, RIA for 401k or KEOGH deferred comp. If the applicant does have any of these assets, again, they would have to indicate whether it's yes or no. If it is yes, they would again have to provide the following information, the name of the financial institution, account number, and amount. And then the last assets that they need to also include are things such as if they own their home, if they own other houses, larger buildings, have any agreement of sale of real property, if they have any burial plans, cemetery plot, any life insurance, or other things, such as jewelry, radio, stereo, a car, etc. For this one, if they do own any of the following, you would just have them indicate the person as the owner, the location or the address of where it is located, the market value, amount owed, and the equity. If they don't know all of that information, again, they can leave it blank, but just that DHS, will ask them about it to, complete it on their application.
And for everything that they answer yes to, is that what they would need to provide documentation for?
In the most cases, yes. I know for sure their checking and savings account. For some of the other documents, they may or may not. That's totally up to normally DHS would let them know for sure. But I know in the past with other clients that I have worked with, they didn't have to show all the documentation. But I know for sure checking and savings or any credit union accounts, they would have to show verification for it. But it would also be good just to have it anyways to provide to DHS.
And is it true that you can only have a certain amount in your checking or savings account, and if not, you're disqualified?
That is not true. In the past, yes, but I believe in 2008, there was a bill that was passed where the amount that was in a person's checking or savings account won't have an effect on their eligibility for SNAP. So they can even own their home or have a lot in their savings. If they pass the gross and the net income, they can still be eligible for assistance. So no, it's not true.
Okay, and that would be the same for, there's families that may own a vacant piece of property somewhere that was passed on to them, inherited, and that won't count against their application.
Yes, it won't.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so question number 17. They would just have to indicate whether or not anyone in the household has sold, traded, transferred, or given away any money, vehicles, or properties within the last 3 months for SNAP. If they're applying for the financial, it would be for if they did any of that within the past 24 months. If it's no, they would just check off no and move on to the next question. If it is a yes, they would indicate the type of item that was sold, when it was sold, the reason for selling or transferring it, the actual value of the item, the amount owed, and what was the amount that they received. The next question, question 18, is anyone aged 16 years and older a student? If anyone in the household is 16 years and older and they are a student, then yes, they would indicate yes and complete the following information. So the name of the student, the name of the school that they attend, whether or not they're a full-time, part-time, what is their start date and their end date for that school year. And then 19, has anyone applied for admission to a college, training, or vocational school? It's just indicating yes or no whether or not anyone in the household has applied for any of those. Okay, next. Right, so we're almost there for completing the application. Next. All right, so the next page, the household would have to indicate all of the unearned income that is received. So unearned income is income that is not gained towards employment. So on the petition and on the application, they list what type of unearned income are countable for SNAP benefits. So those include Social Security, SSI, assistance payments from another state, unemployment benefits, housing authorities such as HUD, Section 8, and energy assistance like Hawaiʻi. I do want to make a note though that if they do receive Section 8, it doesn't necessarily, it won't count as income. I know they didn't make that change on the application, but just note that, like, say if they receive, $1,000 from Section 8 to help with their rent, it won't necessarily be counted as income because it's not income that they receive for them to spend, but it goes straight towards to help pay for their rent. Also, other unearned income that is countable is things such as child support, any money from friends, relatives, any blood or plasma income, retirement, pension, CDI, workers' comp, training allowance, foster care payments, any money from land, buildings, or sales, prizes, cash, insurance settlements, or any reapplication of appeal of a denied benefit. So for all household members, if they receive any of these sorts of income, they would have to report that. And in this case, a lot of your population you work with are the kupunos, so most likely they would have either Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or even retirement pension. If they do receive that, they'll just indicate yes, the person who receives the income, what is their monthly amount, and how often they do receive it. I just do want to note that as far as for income-wise, it is only countable if the household receives it on a monthly, reoccurring, or consistent basis. So say if it's like, for example, if they got money from like a relative or a family member and it was only for that one time, it may not be countable as, again, it's only a one-time thing where it's not something that it's going to be recurring or on a consistent basis. Next.
So that would also apply for, right now there's a lot of community grants that are available to help offset the cost of rent. But those grants are structured in a way that the payment goes directly to the landlord or property manager. So they would list it under other, but it wouldn't be counted against their application.
I don't think they necessarily would really have to indicate that on that. section, what they can do is if they receive it strictly for rent, there's a section on the application where we're gonna go, which is the shelter expenses. That's where they would indicate, where they're getting that assistance from to pay for their rent. So you don't have to necessarily indicate it on the unearned section of the application.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next question, we're gonna go into the earned income. So this is for everyone in the household that is working. I believe probably there's a lot of your components that you currently have are a lot of them just not working, or they're just only collecting Social Security, or would you know that?
I don't, but I would guess that it's a mix.
Okay, all right. So for those, if you do have those who are working, 21, question number 21, they would have to give records of all places where they have worked, beginning with the most recent job. But say, for example, if they've been working for this job for like the past 2 or 3 years, it is okay to leave question number 21 blank. However, if they had like a job that was most recent or whatnot, which is less than a year, then I would suggest them to indicate, what was their job that they last worked at. Number 22, is anyone working? So everyone in the household that is working, they would indicate whether yes, and they would provide as far as the person who is employed, what is their job title, their employer, the date they started, their address of the employer, the phone number, and then indicating how often paid, payday. So how often paid, they would indicate, whether it's twice a month, bi-weekly, weekly. Payday, they can go further into stating as far as, what specific days. So say, for example, if it's bi-weekly, they can do, if they get paid every other Friday, they would indicate every other Friday. If they get paid twice a month and it's on, for example, the 5th and the 20th, they would indicate 5 and 20th. Then they would also have to indicate their hours worked per week. If it is the case, where their hours aren't consistent and it fluctuates, it is okay for them to give an estimate of what their weekly hours are, or they can also just indicate that it fluctuates. But then they would also have to probably provide a little bit more pay stubs to show the fluctuation in their hours and for DHS to determine how their income will be counted. They will also indicate, their hourly rate of pay, and then their gross pay per check. So they would have to indicate their gross pay and not their net, because DHS actually goes off of their gross pay to then indicate whether or not they would be eligible for SNAP benefits after calculating their expenses and the SNAP deductibles. And then if they receive tips from their job, they would also include tips, which is also included as far as earned income. So again, they'll do that for each person that is currently working in the household. Next.
So if a person is unemployed or retired, do they need to fill out question number 21?
No, they don't have to. Yeah, because a lot of times in cases, especially when they're in their kapuna age, I know a lot of times they don't have to. They should be fine, so they don't have to fill out that section.
Okay.
Okay, number 23 is just indicating whether or not anyone in the household is self-employed, any money from business, babysitting, any other kind of things that they're receiving income besides employment or unearned income. This may be counted as income, especially if they're receiving it, on a monthly, recurring, consistent basis. 24, does anyone receive money from roomers or boarders? So this is for those, say, for example, if they own their home and they're receiving, rent money from, renting out a room, that would be counted as income for that particular household and will be included to determine the household's eligibility. Same as, like if they're renting out a whole house, and they're receiving rent, that would also be considered income for the household that is applying for this assistance. Number 25, does anyone expect a change of income, such as like a new job or a change in wages? A lot of times this part is left blank, but in some cases, if the household knows for sure that they're going to be expecting a change of income and the expected date of when the change will be, then yes, they would have to indicate who is going to be expecting a change of income, explaining the reason, and explaining the date of the change of the time that they will receive the income. And do note that if they do expect a change of income, that would also be played into determining their benefits. So say like if it's something that if they get approved for benefits and then say the next month, that's where they have a change of income, DHS would then, take that change of income, recalculate to determine if the household is still eligible and then come up with a new SNAP benefit amount. In the case like where a person or a household member is not sure if they're going to get an expected change, or they're not sure, when they're expected the income, they could just check it off no, because it's something that's not set in stone as of yet. Next. Okay. So page 8, this is where the household would indicate what type of shelter expenses that they pay for. And again, these expenses are used as a deduction to, again, determine the amount of SNAP benefits that the household may be able to be entitled to. As a note, just to know that like if the family or the household is not able to verify these expenses through any kind of statement, whether it's like an electric bill, water bill, etc., they may not receive the deduction for that particular expense. So in order to have it be deducted, it would be best to provide that expense verification, again, as it will help to determine the amount of SNAP benefits and to potentially, give them a higher amount if it is able to be verified. So for each, so number 26, does any person or agency outside your household help to pay for or provide at no cost to you any of the expenses below? So if the household, receives help, with paying for their rent, their utilities, personal supplies, food or household supplies or other expenses, they would indicate yes, and then they would indicate what person or the agency helps to pay or provide that expense. So as you mentioned earlier, with the grant, like where they receive help with paying for rent, that's where this is the question where they would indicate that. So they would say, what grant they're receiving that money from to pay for their rent. In addition, they also have to share whether or not that's something that they do have to pay back. If it's yes, you can check off yes. If it's no, check off no. 27, is anyone in your household working off to pay off any of the rent? So, if they can't, fully pay for their rent and they do, like, say, for example, yard work around the house, that would, include as far as working off to pay the rent off. If that's the case, they'll check off yes. If no, they'll check off no. 28 is just indicating yes or no, or whether or not they live in public housing. Sorry, I kind of went aboard. Let's see. And then 29. So in question 29, this is where the household would have to indicate all of the shelter expenses that they do pay for currently. Just do note, that things such as like car payment and car insurance and gas to like travel aren't included as far as for shelter expense. Also, things such as like cable and internet, that's also not deductible for shelter expenses. But what can be counted towards shelter expenses are the following. So rent, a boat slip, mortgage, their cell or local property tax, homeowner insurance, water, garbage, sewer, trash, electric, gas, propane, telephone, whether it's cell phone or landline, any utility installation fees, um, and any unoccupied home expenses. If they do, pay for any of these expenses, they would indicate yes, how often it is billed, and the current amount that is billed. If it's a situation like where, say, like this kapuna lives, with family members, and they help out to pay for rent, they can just indicate their portion of rent that they contribute to the household's total rent. Next one, and then number 30, it asks, are you billed separately for utility costs? So if there are bills separately, for things such as electric or water, they would indicate yes, and they will check off for which utility bills are paid separately. In addition to this question, they do have what's called a standard utility allowance and the actual utility cost, so SUA. A lot of times, a lot of family members do get what's called the SUA. So the SUA is an amount that reflects the average statewide amount spent for specific utilities and other mandatory fees. So say, for example, if the member's electric bill, say, is only $50 a month, instead of being deducted the actual amount, they can indicate that they would like to have the SUA amount deducted. So for SUA, for electric, the family can get, if it's a household size of 1, instead of getting $50 deducted, they'll get $193 deducted as far as for their electric. So as well as for the water and sewer and trash, which is a different amount. So a lot of times it's better to do the SUA than to do the actual utility costs that they pay, because they'll get more deductible in that expense and could possibly give them a higher amount in their SNAP benefit. Question number 31, does your room or rent payment include meals? I would say this question probably wouldn't be relevant to a lot of your components that you help, but it's just, say if any of them, are like in like a boarding home or like and where their meals are included and it's mandatory, then they would have to indicate yes or no and provide whether or not, provide how many meals they are provided, and what the monthly amount is for the meals. Next. Okay, there are only 3 more questions to answer, and then the application will be completed. Next. Okay, so let's see. So page 9. So page 9, it indicates additional expenses that can be deductible, again, to determine the household eligibility and the monthly amount that they can receive for SNAP benefits. So number 32, they will just have to indicate yes or no if anyone in the household pays for any child support expenses. So if there is someone in the household, they'll check off yes and just share for the typical payment, the amount, how often paid, and the name of person paid. And they would also have to provide verification showing, the amount that they pay for child support. Another deductible and an expense is the dependent care expenses. So say, if the kapuna, is disabled, or needs like a caregiver to help take care of them, and they're paying this individual to take care of them, that can also be counted as a expense to take care of them. Again, they would just indicate the name of the person receiving the care, which is themselves, the name of the person that they're paying to help care for them, and then how often they pay for it, and as far as the name of the person that's providing the care. Next, number medical expenses. So in addition to all the other expenses, if a kapuna has any type of medical expenses that they pay out of pocket, it could possibly be deducted and contributed to determining their monthly benefit amount for SNAP. So if they're 60 years or older, also see if they're 60 years or older or have any kind of like disability, they can be eligible for the medical expense. So things that are included as expenses is things such as their Medicare premiums. So say, for example, like if they receive Social Security and their Medicare is deducted from their Social Security, that will be counted as a Medicare expense, and they would indicate that on the application. If they have to pay for any prescriptions, any co-payments for any doctor bills, that can be counted as well. However, it would have to only be counted if they pay for it on, again, a monthly, recurring, consistent basis. So say if they pay for it monthly or, every 3 months, then DHS may eventually deduct it from their monthly income when determining their eligibility. As far as for payments, say for example, like they had to ride in the ambulance. If they have a very high ambulance bill, they may not eventually count it unless they enroll in some kind of monthly payment to pay off the balance that is due to the ambulance ride, say if that's any of the cases. If they do have medical expenses, they would just indicate, the name of person that the expense is for. They can indicate whether they know the actual amount or the estimated expense, how often it is billed, and what doctor or what pharmacy or what insurance company they pay that medical expense to. Next. All right, so page 11. Okay, so page 11. So the primary applicant, their signature will be needed on page 8. So they just sign and date. Question number 9. So certification by authorized representative. So say if they have someone, filling out the application for them, that's where they would indicate their information. So say, if they have a granddaughter that's, going to be their authorized representative and is filling out the application, they would include their information such as their signature, their address, their relationship to the individual, and then their contact number. And then they would just check off, whether or not there's a section where it says, I help the application fill out this form. I understand that anyone helping another person in dishonesty getting benefits is subject to criminal penalties. So they would check off whether they certify that the answer given by them is what they know personally about him or her, or was provided by the applicant or the recipient. Number 10, they would just have to indicate who they would want to be contacted should there be any case of an emergency or a death. And then question number 11, don't need to be completed. That is to be completed by the eligibility worker that speaks with the applicant or the authorized representative regarding their SNAP benefits. Next. Okay, what are the required supporting documents and how can we help someone obtain these documents? Next. Let me. Okay, I can go over the documentation just briefly. So for everyone in the household, mostly for the adults, a photo ID will have to be submitted in, whether it's a driver's license, a state ID, or if they, ride the handy van and they have a handy van ID or a disability bus pass that has their picture, they can use that. Everyone in the household would also need a social security card. Everyone in the household would either need a birth certificate or a passport. If they are a legal permanent resident, they would need their green card. Or say, if anyone in the household did naturalize to become a U.S. citizen, they can also use their certificate of naturalization. If anyone in the household is pregnant, they'll just need a verification from their doctor, verifying that they are pregnant. If there is any disabilities within the household, they would also provide a doctor note or healthcare provider. But if they receive like SSDI, then they don't necessarily need the disability verification, as the SSDI would indicate that they do have some kind of disability. If there is anyone in the household that say is a college student, they would also would have to provide their class schedule. If you experience anyone that is still working, they would need to provide their employment pay stub. Most likely, it would have to be 1 to 2 months of most recent pay stubs. If they're receiving Social Security, SSI, or any of the unearned income that's indicated on the application, they would also have to provide verification as well. If they have any checkings or savings account, pretty much they would also again have to provide verification, and it would have to be the most recent bank statement that they have. They would also have to provide their current rental lease agreement, or if they're paying for mortgage, they can just do a mortgage statement. Say if they don't have their rental agreement, but they are given receipts, they can also use that to indicate that what their monthly rent is monthly. If they do pay for utility bills such as electric, water, gas, phone, or even maintenance fees, just a current statement of those utilities would also be submitted for DHS, as well as for dependent care expenses. Again, if they're paying for child support, or is paying someone to care for them, they would have to provide verification as well for that. And then also medical expenses, for whatever medical expenses they pay for, they would also have to provide documentation with that. So like receipts, or if they have like statements that are given to them directly from the doctor, they can also provide that as well to verify the expense. Next.
And so if anyone doesn't have these documents on hand, so for example, they don't have a copy of their birth certificate, or they lost their social security card, are all of those things able to be applied for online?
I believe so, yes. I know that they can request another social security, and they can request another birth certificate. I know that they can either call or online, because I've had clients in the past that were able to obtain a new social security card and a new birth certificate. But say if they don't have a birth certificate but they have a passport, then they can just use the passport and not have to worry about submitting in the birth certificate.
And then for all of these documents, because it could be quite a long list, they could go ahead and submit the application without all of the documents. And then when they get connected directly with DHS and the eligibility worker, at that time submit the rest of the documents.
Yes, they can do that as well, correct.
But if it is a family member that's helping them, and they are doing it online and submitting the application on email, is there a way to attach all of these other documents electronically directly to the email?
Yeah, so they can attach it, or they can also just take pictures of the document and then send it through, and then attachment as well. DHS is allowing that for that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so for Hawaii Island, these are the current locations of where you can drop off and submit the application. Or again, you can also submit in the application via email at bessc.statewidebranch@chshawaii.gov. If they do decide to send it via email, I would also just make sure, that they call the office personally, just to make sure, that it was received, just to make sure, that it was received and not cause any delay in the processing of the application. Yep. Next. Okay, so what can you expect after the application is submitted? Next. Okay. DHS, I kind of went over it earlier, but again, you would expect contact from DHS to complete your interview. It will be either via phone or via mail. It can be unscheduled or scheduled. So say if it's unscheduled, DHS will just call at a random day and time and complete the interview with the applicant. If it is a scheduled appointment, DHS will mail out a letter to the applicant, and it would state as far as when their interview day is and their interview time is. Again, if they're not able to make their appointment or they miss it, again, they can contact the office to reschedule their appointment. Yep, next page. Okay, in the interview, so what you can expect in the interview. So again, all household members must complete a phone interview or office interview with DHS worker in order to receive benefits. During the interview, the DHS eligibility worker will go over the application with the applicant and verify any unclear information by asking additional questions. Again, if any additional documents are needed, the DHS worker will notify the applicant during or before the interview and would also let them know how they can submit, those remaining documents to the office. And just as a big note, failure to complete interview or failure to even submit in all the documents can equal a denial of benefits. And if this is the case of where they were denied because of a failure to complete interview or failure to submit all documents, they can instantly reapply again for the SNAP benefit.
Okay, because we have heard from folks who have said, oh, I got denied in the past, and so they've been hesitant to apply again. But being denied in the past is not a reason why you shouldn't try and apply again.
Correct, yes. I always encourage people, that if you have been denied in the past, like as you mentioned, it shouldn't, hinder them from, reapplying again for the benefits, especially, if they know that they are eligible. I would still suggest them to highly still reapply again.
Okay.
Especially if, it was this where, they just missed their interview or it was their documents, I would highly suggest them to reapply again. Okay, so after the interview, DHS will then make a decision as to whether or not the household is approved or denied for the benefits. If they are given, a phone interview, DHS will let them know on the phone right there or not if they are approved or not, and what their monthly benefits will be, and how to access their ABT card, which most likely it would be mailed just during this time of COVID-19, but normally they would have to go directly to the office to pick up the card. If they're scheduled for in-person interview, again, they'll be told in person. And even after when they're told verbally, they should also receive approval or denial letter from DHS stating they're approved or denied for their benefits. Next. Okay, so applicants may be denied for the following individuals or households. So these are some, of the people who are not eligible for SNAP benefits and could also, possibly have them denied to apply for the assistance. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I'll just skim through it briefly. So, or ones that could possibly apply. So if anyone, say if you have a kupuna that's like currently in the hospital, but they're interested, in applying for SNAP benefits, they won't actually be eligible for SNAP benefits until they are out of the hospital and back in the home. Reason being is because during their hospital stay, they are provided 3 meals a day, and it is mandatory. And with DHS, the rule is if you're receiving, 2 meals a day, then you're not eligible for SNAP benefits. That's the same as the second one where it says person who rent shelter payment includes mandatory meals. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, none of this really applies too much to your group, I would say. But those are some of the reasons of why someone may be denied SNAP benefits.
What if the applicant themselves, for example, was not convicted of a drug-related felony, but someone within their household was? Would the application be denied for?
Well, not necessarily. So say say if you have a kupuna, so this comes into play as far as the household composition. So with the DHS, even if you live in the household altogether, you don't necessarily have to apply as one household. So say, for example, you have a kupuna and she lives, with her son and his family. And say, for example, the son was convicted, of a drug-related felony. In this kind of case, the son can actually apply separately from mom. And if that's the case, then the son's and his family's information doesn't even need to be included on the application. And so if that's the case, then it won't affect the applicant that is applying for the assistance. But say if they do apply together as a single household, I can't really say if they will be denied because sometimes DHS, they would let, that person who was convicted, kind of share, their situation, and, they'll make a decision as far as they'll make like a good cause decision, and then if so, that person could still be eligible for the assistance with everyone else. But if it's in the case of where, something recent, just that person would not be eligible, but everybody else would still be eligible if they meet all the other requirements. Okay. If approved, again, applicant will come to the DHS office and pick up their EBT card. I know right now, because of the current COVID-19, they are just mailing in the EBT card. And then their card is supposed to be activated by the ending of the business day unless otherwise specified. So there can be some instances where a client can receive their EBT card but not have any funds on it yet. That could be because DHS is still waiting for, additional documents from the applicant or the household. And until then, when they receive our documents, they won't have any funds until everything is turned in, and then funds will be distributed then. Okay, and then if denied, again, a denial notice will be issued. As I mentioned earlier, households can reapply immediately if the reason for denial was a missed interview or failure to submit documents. And then a household can also reapply and appeal if they believe that they were denied due to a calculation error or any other mistake by the Department of Human Service. Next. Okay, processing time. So from the time your application is timestamped, DHS legally has 30 days to process your application. And within this processing time, you should have been completed an interview and be notified whether or not you have been approved or denied for benefits. Most applications are processed sooner, but applicants should at least expect a 1 to 2 week wait period before actually hearing any contact from DHS. And as I mentioned earlier, if the application, is fully completed and it has all of the copies of the requested verification, it can speed up the processing time for a household to receive their benefits if they are eligible. Next. Okay, so when a household is on benefits, they do have to reapply. So they have to reapply every 6 months and every year. So when their benefits are up for 6 months or ER, the DHS will send the 6-month report form and the ER form directly to the applicant, and it will be sent a month before their benefits expire. On the letter, it will tell the applicant what they have to do, when the forms and supporting documents have to be turned in, and that if the documents and the form is submitted in late or no submission, it can affect the benefits by having a delay of it or be completely cut off from their benefits, meaning that they would have to reapply again for benefits. Within the forms, they do have to indicate, if there were any changes within their income, their household composition, their expenses, everything that was pretty much counted for their SNAP benefits. It should be listed on the form. If there are any changes, they do have to indicate that and provide the verification, and it has to be within 10 days of the change. Okay. So frequently asked questions. So if applying for food stamp benefits and approved, will it affect my Social Security benefits? No. So applying for SNAP will not affect your Social Security benefits, and receiving SNAP will also have no effect on your benefits. Will you need to pay taxes for the SNAP benefits you receive? That answer is no. And also, when you go to the store and you purchase food, you just pay for the exact amount. You don't pay the tax part for it. And then, will you automatically get enrolled in Medicaid? That answer is no. Medicaid actually has a separate application and a separate process from SNAP. Thank you very much, and I hope this presentation, was very useful and informative. If you do have, any other questions, about SNAP, the application process, or anything in general, or you may have, clients who may have, issues with their benefits that they're currently on it, you can feel free to give me a call at 440-3832 or at 285-6607, or you can also email me at clopez@helpinghandshawaii.org. Thank you.